Hey everyone, welcome back to AI Insights. My name's Fleur, your favorite AI Insights host, and I'm here together with Gráinne.
Hi.
So, we have like a full schedule today to talk about everything that's been happening this week. So for years, the AI industry is now operated in like a digital sandbox. You generate an AI image, you chatted with a bot, and you looked at a demo. This week, the sandbox completely dissolved. Within 72 hours of launch, the US government actually used emergency powers to completely ban international access to Anthropic's new model, Mythos. And meanwhile, Midjourney jumped into physical hardware with a medical scanner built to combat human mortality, and the UK banned romantic AI for teenagers. The era of passive consumption is completely over. So the sudden shift from virtual novelty to physical and regulatory emergency is kind of the theme for this podcast episode. But before we go into that, I would actually love to talk about actually what's happening this week in AI. So the sudden shifts. So actually, before diving into this week's chaotic news cycle, a quick ground level perspective for me after traveling this week around Europe in the European tech circuit, because two big things happened. So there was Vivatech in Paris. So the energy at Paris Expo Port de Versailles was entirely dominated by the shift towards absolute infrastructure autonomy and digital sovereignty. A massive highlight was actually Jean LeCun's first major public appearance since leaving Meta to start advanced machine intelligence labs, and he explicitly called out companies like Anthropic for lobbying to make open source AI effectively illegal, arguing that scaling up current large language models is a dead end for true intelligence. And we also saw a massive push for localized tech. So Orange's CEO noted that the critical question is no longer who has the best model, but who controls the underlying servers. IBM actually even echoed this by showcasing their new Sovereign Core platform to help organizations build compliantly, tightly walled AI environments. I mean, I love the colors. The city was completely turned into like a tech spectacle. Literally amazing. I recommend anyone who wants to go next year. I also want to thank tech makers for giving me the ticket to go, so that was really nice. And also in Amsterdam, we had Amsterdam Tech Week, because back in the Netherlands, the vibe was a sharp, pragmatic contrast. The focus was also heavily on practical developer tooling, decentralized networks, and also European startups navigating the strict realities of the ecosystem. What I saw mostly is the contrast between the grand geopolitical chess matches in Paris and the ground level building in Amsterdam shows Europe is actually aggressively preparing to build its own independent tech future. So I would say we're really seeing Europe's massive push for digital sovereignty in Paris perfectly frames the absolute whiplash of the global news that dropped the second I got back.
And it's so cool just seeing, Europe flourish and like build its own kind of tech communities. I think America has such a distinct tech culture,
Mm-hmm.
but Europe is really kind of building their own. I mean, rather they already have it, but I guess enhancing what's already there. And this summer alone, I mean, I've seen so many initiatives and it looks like, for example, I came to Ireland like 5 or 6 years ago. And I mean, obviously we always had like big tech companies, Google, Meta, like we always had the tech companies, but we didn't have the same community that we do now. And community makes such a difference when it comes to innovation and when it comes to actually, kind of transforming what industries look like.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's so cool doing this podcast with Fleur because, she has insight into kind of that area. So, yeah, definitely check out those events, guys. Amsterdam Tech Week 2026 and Viva Tech 2026 Paris.
Yeah, I could definitely recommend going to these events. It was so much fun. And we're not done yet. I mean, in a few weeks, there's also going to be the AI for Good convention in
Mhm.
Geneva, where I'm also going to be speaking on a panel to talking in the USO.
Yes!
So
Yes!
exciting. But of course, our listeners are here for the AI news. So, Gráinne, you want to hit it off with the first item?
Yeah, of course. So I love being able to speak about this as the podcast's resident American. There has been a 72-hour shutdown. The US has banned Mythos access. So what happened? Basically, just 72 hours after launch, the US government ordered Anthropic to completely shut off international access to its vulnerability hunting Mythos model. The intervention occurred after security researchers bypassed internal safety guardrails, turning the cyber defense tool into a potential weapon. It is the fastest, most aggressive federal model intervention in history, and it proves that frontier models are now being treated exactly like restricted mutations, shattering the concept of a borderless global software ecosystem. I mean, this is obviously incredibly interesting. I also had multiple calls this week regarding AI regulation in the United States and trying to bring clarity to different people and companies regarding, what exactly are the regulations and it's an impossible question to answer really because the US is always evolving when it comes to like executive orders and the patchwork of state regulation. And the federal government is extraordinarily slow to place any sort of restriction on AI. And there's not a lot of conversations taking place right now about regulating AI or kind of pushing AI and curtailing it for social good. Like those conversations aren't happening, certainly not to the same extent as Europe. However, what
Mhm.
we are seeing is a huge and nearly like overwhelming kind of enthusiasm from the federal government to place those sort of restrictions and guidelines, etc., when it comes to transatlantic kind of access. So that's a very, very interesting development. And I think something that's going to shift the industry for decades to come. And again, I mean, ultimately, it's nearly a panic button. The federal government did not wait for a policy draft. They immediately yanked the cord.
Yeah, I saw this. So I built the Tech Oracle dashboard a few months ago just to keep up with all the news that's happening in the world. And I watched this filter through my dashboard right after getting back from Amsterdam Tech Week. And I mean, the speed of the shutdown proves like the open internet is effectively dead for frontier compute. Not to depress anyone, but it does show that there is also people are starting to look different at AI. That is not just anymore like an innovation frontier, but it's also like, okay, but what potential danger can this cause for our national security?
Yeah, and I mean, it's really fascinating. Like it's hard to overstate the impact that this could have. I mean, even in my calls this week, right? I was talking
Hmm.
to a lot of law firms are starting to use Claude. Claude had this viral AI for lawyers webinar and they're really aggressively targeting that industry. But what a shutdown of this nature means is that any law firm that is building on top of Claude could have that information could have their kind of capacities compromised insofar as they won't have access to like a continuously updating version of Claude. And who's to say that the shutdowns stop here? All of these tech companies are based out of the United States. So OpenAI, United States. All of them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So, I mean, Copilot, Harvey's based out of there. That's another kind of legal AI slash kind of just continuing on that corporate
yeah.
conversation. But I mean, I it's really it's almost difficult to predict now exactly the ramifications. We can only say that they're going to be huge. Also, it's like, what even are the exact stipulations of this? It's so recent that we don't know. I texted Fleur this week and I was like, well, I have an American computer. By American, I mean obviously purchased in America, but also set up in America. So the region on my computer, on my device settings, which you can't change, by the way, after, you've set
Yeah,
up the
you
device.
purchase it.
Yeah. My regional settings are United States on both my computer and my phone. I mean, I'm also an American citizen, but I don't know how far that goes because you can't really tell that when I'm trying to access Claude. But just to say, like, if I could do a VPN to the United States,
Mhm.
and I have a computer that's set up in the American region, would I be able to access Claude from Europe? This new version of Claude. I don't know yet because I haven't tried it, but, it's kind of how are they like, what are the lines that this will be detected with? Because then us as a podcast, we'd have access to whatever iteration of Claude we wanted by virtue of me being American, or maybe if you went and purchased an American computer. It's hard, again, to realize the full implications of this and what it might lead to.
No, true. I mean, at Vivitech, they were also very much preaching for maybe bringing the data centers over here instead of keeping them in the US. That was one of the options because we were talking about, okay, we should have more control over where our data goes. But then one of the American companies actually said, as an example, well, we could also just build the data centers here because then it's easy for us to comply with the European regulations.
Yeah, and that's a massive conversation right now, especially in Ireland, because we
Hmm.
have I think it's the most data centers per capita in the EU. We invest overwhelmingly heavily in data centers, and we also have another thing. I mean, it's gonna be really interesting to see how kind of things turn out is we have every tech company in our borders. So every like, literally anyone you can list, like Temu, TikTok, LinkedIn, name it, we have it. Whether it's from, like, actual computing to social media, we have all of them. So, like, what happens for we have Claude as well. We have OpenAI. I get like, so it'll be really interesting to see Ireland's government response to this and how they might approach it.
No, agreed. I think it's also a good point for us to move on to our next, which is actually Midjourney's massive pivot. I mean, I don't know if you saw, but they are introducing the medical scanner. It was so random because, like, I remember Midjourney from the Discord days when it was just like a Discord channel where you could make the images. But actually, so what happened here is Midjourney shocked the tech and medical worlds by announcing the Midjourney scanner. It was not even that creative, but it's a physical AI. It's a physical AI driven diagnostic hardware device, and the company actually claims that its advanced pattern recognition models can detect like early stage internal anomalies efficiently enough to prevent up to like 30% of preventable deaths globally. So we're talking about like cancer, a growth, you name it. And I think it represents also like a massive migration here of generative tech away from like the digital media and directly into hard science, biotechnology, and also physical healthcare infrastructure. And the company here is actually famous for like surreal digital art, and it's now trying to solve human mortality. For me, this was the wildest pivot we've seen yet, from like image generation to hey, we can also now do medical scanners.
Completely. Yeah, and I've worked on I mean, even up like 2 years ago, I was working on the laws and regulations surrounding the development of medical AI. Specifically, I was doing clearing the regulations and meeting compliance standards for inputting sensitive imagery into a training model, and then those sensitive images were filtered into that training model to then create an AI that was capable of assessing medical injury using very vague
Mm-hmm.
terms because obviously very confidential project. But yeah, I mean it's crazy how much it's advanced. And I mean that was with a massive company. We were doing that work for a massive company. So the fact I mean Midjourney is massive as well, but again it's a pivot, right? So it just goes to show, I mean AI can do really anything. You know what I mean? And people are using it for anything. I mean, yeah, and the amount of people that are going into oh, this is a little bit off topic, but I'm just gonna say it super
Mm-hmm.
briefly. Just on the topic of like really like these AI companies, even the term AI company is so vague that it's almost lost its meaning because of the vast varieties of things that are encompassed under AI. I mean, for example, Midjourney, formerly photo generation, now with the medical scanner, but also there's this phenomenon now of like these shadow companies, quote unquote, that are AI websites, or rather, like they are a like they're generative AI services, and
Mm-hmm.
it's an AI girlfriend, but they're shadow websites. It's like a dark web scan where basically they try to trap people into speaking to an AI girlfriend and putting in their sensitive information so they can then hack into the person's bank details and take, finances. It's crazy, and I mean, that's also
Yeah.
included under, kind of the whole LLM economy. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it
No,
really go
no,
on?
but it's true. Like these crimes are happening, and you see like a lot of law enforcement are trying to catch up to this kind of crimes. But it's also like, okay, how do you even start with figuring out, okay, who built this AI girlfriend? Where did it come from? Where did the data go? Who hacked that person?
Yeah.
Because it always goes somewhere where you're like, okay, we don't have no jurisdiction in that country.
Yeah. Oh my god, and that can be fascinating. I mean, yeah, like,
Hmm.
just kind of because the intersecting regulations, and that's where you need kind of truly global lawyers, like, I mean, such as
Like you.
myself. But, yeah, I mean, transatlantic issues are becoming more important than ever, and I think we're really, really seeing that with Claude. I mean, imagine, right? Imagine Midjourney, has developed this LLM, this medical scanner, but they're
Mhm,
relying on Claude for an aspect of its enablement, so Claude is somehow integrated. A recent iteration of Claude is somehow integrated into their medical scanner, and say it's used widely across hospitals. If the United States government in control of that, recent iteration of Claude
mhm.
that provides a executive order of some nature, completely shut down this iteration of Claude and everything that it is included within, then the medical scanner is down overnight. And what does that mean for doctors, you know? So crazy times as always and
Yeah,
in
no,
this
agreed.
industry. I mean, also, over the course geez, I was gonna say, like, I'm rambling on so much, but I suppose that's the point of the podcast. It's fascinating how complex these stories have become, how intersected they've become. I remember t geez, I feel so old saying this, but 2 years ago, during the AI Studio Ghibli whatever, like, that launch, we were like, "This is crazy. It can create photos now. This is so weird." And now we're discussing the same company's journey into the medical industry and what that might mean and, how it intersects with various other phenomena in the industry. Anyway, moving swiftly forwards from that, because I've talked about it enough, on to part C, which is actually, we've discussed all these different things. We've touched on regulation. Now we're bringing it back to what the most substantive regulatory effort put towards AI in history, which is the EU AI Act and its upcoming deadline. So the EU AI Act is going to be put further into place in August of
Mhm,
2026. I mean, as always, there's different proposals, the EU AI Act Omnibus, and there's also a lot of push to kind of delay the deadline, but that doesn't mean that it is going to be, kind of delayed into perpetuity. There's definitely, as we're moving forward, regulations are becoming increasingly substantive. And what I really just wanted to highlight briefly is that Italy is now the first European nation to fully implement the EU AI Act. So, congratulations, Italy! And we will see, as Italy kind of processes issues and
mhm.
applies, regulatory standards into law, etc., we will see kind of the outcomes of that, and that'll probably be a guiding force for a lot of the rest of the EU because Ireland obviously has been very slow to implement the EU AI Act in no small part due to pressures from big technology companies from the United States that are resistant to regulatory pressures and in the Netherlands as well is I wouldn't call them slow to implement but certainly slower, we're all slower than Italy who has fully implemented it. So congratulations,
Yeah,
Italy. And
Italy
with
was like, "We're just gonna do it."
yeah, Italy was like, "Okay, you know what? We have
We're
the time, let's get it done." Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, here in the Netherlands, it's mostly people been up voting. There still needs to be like a whole voting process and a specific law needs to be made for this to be implemented. And I
Yeah.
think that's why it's taking so slow. Also because there's a lot of issues now happening in the country. I'm not trying to make any excuses.
Yeah. No, same here. I mean, if
But
there's
also
one
the pressure from big tech as well, because here it's also there's a large tech industry happening. So it's also like
yeah. I
so many
here's
parties.
I love it. What I predict is that, and I think we're in such cool locations to be doing this podcast because I really predict that the Netherlands will be such a source of like startup frenzy. I think that like the startup slash innovation culture that we see in America, I think we're going to also see that in the Netherlands. I think we all already see it. I mean, I worked for a startup in the Netherlands and loved it. Shout out Pleasure AI. I love you guys always. But like, there's so much innovation in the Netherlands, and they are so and I mean, honestly, you guys have the MIT of the EU. You guys have the MIT of the continent, which is TU Delft.
Hmm.
I There's no comparison in Ireland when it comes to that sort of, like, academic, like, rigorous talent, at least in an institutional way. I'm not saying that we don't have that academic prowess, but I am saying that we do not have TU Delft. It's really like it's like MIT level stuff, and I also see these really strong, tight-knit communities in the Netherlands and all these conferences. I mean, I attended so many conferences when I was in the Netherlands. We met at one of those conferences.
We did. I think we met at the one from the University of Utrecht at the time.
Yeah, yeah,
I
that's
can remember that because you were, like, walking past me, I was like you were like, "We should definitely, like, link up," and I was like, "Sure."
yeah, I was like, "Give me your LinkedIn." Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, right? And we have this podcast, we're now award nominated, we've been doing this for 2 years. We've become such good friends over that time as well, but it's just like the Netherlands, I think, has this really uncanny ability to kind of knit together communities and create really tangible and like forward results from those
Mhm,
communities. Which again is so cool that, you work in community management as well. But yeah, and then what I see from Ireland is that, because we have these gigantic tech companies, it's kind of the two sides of the coin, right? Like Ireland is like the corporate side and like I see
mhm,
the Netherlands as like the startup side nearly. What's so funny and what kind of like adds to that what kind of adds to that hypothesis or rather proves that hypothesis, one of our largest startups, which is called Mana Drone Delivery, which is
mhm.
basically trying to normalize, take it from like a someone driving a bike and delivering your food on a bike to a drone delivering it. One of our largest startups, which works very seriously on like frontier technology and frontier drone technology, which controls the future of warfare. So I mean, like important in a commercial way, but also just for kind of an industrial way as well.
Mhm.
They have now relocated fully out of Ireland, which is very interesting. I mean, it's due to regulatory pressures. I completely understand the regulatory pressures, mind you, like because people don't want drones flying overhead. I understand that. But I mean, it remain like the fact still remains, which is that one of Ireland's largest startups has now relocated out of Ireland. And we do have a great startup scene. Like we have Stripe, etc. But it's definitely not the same energy that you would see in Amsterdam, and it's very, very connected to kind of its corporation. No one could
No,
deny that Ireland is very connected to its corporations.
no, agreed, but I think that's also good why the 2 countries are also talking a lot with each other.
Yeah,
But I mean, like, here, for example, in the Netherlands, we just saw also, TechLeap opened an AI hub in the middle of Amsterdam just to,
yeah,
like, keep innovating AI and getting actually companies more together because we didn't have an AI hub before, and the whole idea is for it to be the same thing as like Station Neuf,
yeah,
the AI hub in Ireland, where people can come together and actually gain that knowledge. It's the
yeah,
same thing, kind of what Process is trying to do as well in Amsterdam. So I'm very much looking forward to those 2 locations competing with each other
yeah.
for the attention. But that's also the thing. What I love about the Netherlands is that when it comes to community building here, a lot of stuff is like built on trust and like who you know
Mhm.
and who can help you out because a lot of people are in the startup scene are like, "Oh, you have this great idea. Okay, I might have a few connections that can actually help you out."
Yeah,
And that's just amazing to see.
yeah, and the Netherlands is so much fun, like,
I
people
totally agree.
yeah, people there are so much fun, but simultaneously, we also, like, so in the Netherlands, you'll have, like, these startup boat parties and, like, all these crazy fun things, and, like, we do not over here in Ireland, we do not have those we do not have startup boat parties, but what we do have is the most massive corporations in the world opening their doors to anybody that, kind of has an interest and, sees fit to come in. Like, for example, when Fleur was here, she went to, like, this really cool quantum computing with this company, and you
Yeah,
wanna
for
see
Mastercard, I remember that was so amazing.
yeah, and what's crazy is, like, I obviously liked that post, and I think I commented or, like, I did something on it because people in my network reached out to me, and they were, like from America. Oh my god, I don't even think I ever told you this, but people in my network reached out to me, and they were like, wow, Fleur is amazing. How does she manage to be at the how did she manage to coordinate with Mastercard on these incredible issues that are just the fastest thinking things of our time? And are there any insights that you would be able? And I was like, listen to her podcast if you want the insights.
Oh my god, I never even knew.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I can't believe yeah, but that's the thing, right? Like, like, in Ireland, you have access to these massive companies and exactly what they're doing, versus in America, there's such a higher barrier to entry for those companies,
Mhm.
like, you can't be anybody and walk into and I'm not saying you can just be anybody and walk in Ireland, but, like, it's a completely different kind of scene, and Ireland's a lot friendlier, and Ireland's also looking to kind of build that community
Mhm,
in Europe more broadly, and they want, like, kind of international experts like Fleur to be there and, contributing and etcetera, versus I think in America, there's such a higher barrier to entry because, I
mhm.
mean, it's just a completely different climate over there, but yeah, yeah. No, like, people were like no, because I liked it, and then it came across people's feeds, and then I had people mention it to me. They were like, "Wow, Fleur just has it all." And I was like, "Yeah, she does. Yeah, she does. Listen to the podcast.
Yeah,
She'll teach you how to have it all if you just
I'd have it
listen."
all. Okay, well, my tip number 1 is download Luma. That would definitely but also, yeah, I would say also just be in Europe because, yeah, what you talked about, like, in Europe, it's so much more accessible,
Yeah.
because the people who walk around here are per se not the people you will see with the $1,000,000 contracts, but they are the smartest
Yeah.
people, and that
Yeah.
who just do what they love, and then they're like, "I'm fine." But I think it's also because of, like, the structure, how each country here works, because we all have, like, our social security structure.
Yeah, yes, and another thing is, like, it's open in so many different ways. For example, I went to the International Court of Justice.
Mhm.
Right, it's on my LinkedIn, I think, but I just went into the International Court of Justice and I witnessed the process, and by the way, not to diss, but everybody in the everybody in the international like, when I was there, right?
Huh?
Ironic I mean, I'm always kinda thinking about, like, technology, it's just my passion, it's where my brain goes, but when I was in the International Court of Justice, every single judge was on their phone. I was I was like, "Are they Googling the answer right now?" Because countries were giving testimonies, like, we watched Ireland give a testimony,
Probably.
they were all on their phones. I was like, "Well, surely the one time that you don't wanna be on the phone is when a country is in front of you giving, information that you're gonna have to rule on." You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And even I kind of had a conversation with the person that I went with as well, being like, "Do you think they're, like, ChatGPTing, like, what they wanna say?" Like, because I mean, I was trying to like, I've really bad eyesight, but I was
Yeah.
trying to look at, like, what was, happening on the phone. I'm really nosy, like, if there's a phone around me, I'm just always going to look, but
But look on the screen.
yeah, I couldn't see what they were doing, but I mean, everybody was on their
Look
phone,
at
and that was the
yeah.
International Court of Justice in Den Haag, and that was a great experience. But anyway, them being on
I
their phone.
think
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, no, I think we should definitely move on to our final story,
Okay.
by the way, of the whole
Yeah.
podcast, because there's one more news item which actually caught our attention, which is actually because you were talking about earlier about like people talking to AI for romance, looking for an AI
Yeah,
girlfriend. So actually, in the UK, UK government has issued a comprehensive blanket ban prohibiting actually social media and romantic AI companion applications from targeting or registering teenagers under 18. So when you
good.
were talking about that, I was like, actually, wait, we wrote something down about that as like the final talking point.
Mhm.
And what's really interesting, so behavioral data actually shows a surge in teenagers replacing real world social
God.
interaction with hyper personalized, non judgmental AI companions. And the UK is actually treating this as a severe public mental health risk.
Good.
I mean, like here, like the rapid rise of like 24/7 companion apps. You talked about it earlier where they're actually trying to steal your data. But also it's like these companion apps are like optimized purely for like emotional lock-in and user engagement. And this speaks profound to like the isolation in our communities. I mean, banning the apps might protect teens from algorithmic manipulation, though you're still on Instagram and Facebook, so that's a second opinion.
Yeah.
But, like, I think banning these apps might protect teens for now, but it doesn't solve the underlying loneliness that made these digital
Yeah.
companions so appealing in the first place.
Yeah. I also think they banned under 16s from social media entirely. Yeah. So, like, there's this ban for under 18, and then there's another
Mhm.
ban for under 16, which is all social media. And I fully agree with this. I even think, although my last point was incredibly long winded, I even think it links into my last point, which is that people are I mean, always on their phones and, like, phone
Mhm.
addictions are so I mean, I hate calling it phone addiction. Hopefully, there's a more kind of eloquent word or I mean, sure
Yeah.
there is. I'll just have to
I
Google
mean,
it,
I
but
have my phone even now with me, and we're doing a podcast.
yeah, I
Yeah,
love that you
thanks.
threw it as well, like, I don't even need this.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, but that's the thing, you know, I actually wait, I might even show this. So for my Instagram, what I've done is I've actually set up like all these different I've set up all these different and I have like a decent amount of self-control, I think, but I've set up look, in order to access Instagram, I
Uh-huh.
have to do math. Do you see
Mhm.
that? 1 plus 16. Yeah, sorry, but, like, I've set up all and, you know, I'm a functioning, relatively disciplined, I would say, adult, and it's like, I don't trust myself to have unfettered access to these apps, nor do I want unfettered access to these apps because of how dangerous it is, and I think that, like, screen time components should be made so much more mainstream. I think they
Mhm.
should be taught in schools. I'm grateful that there's efforts to ban, you know, social media and honestly, I mean, we're Gen Z, so I know we're quite young, but Fleur, I'm so grateful that I didn't grow up with these sorts of, you know, things in my childhood because I think I have a
Mhm.
such a different brain because of it, and I feel so sad for kids that don't get those opportunities and that have to grow up in, like, this increasingly isolated world and fight things that they don't have the power to fight. I mean, I also discussed on the podcast, it was either last episode or 2 episodes ago, that there's actually a lawsuit there was a recent lawsuit against Mark Zuckerberg because a woman was addicted to either Instagram or Facebook, something under the Meta framework. And it's the like she basically said this algorithm was designed to get me addicted and my addiction has ruined my life and you are now responsible. And I'm pretty sure she either won or like was in
Yeah, I remember it was in LA. Yeah, she ended up winning actually, the case.
yeah, yeah, she so hopefully, I mean, that now the United States is not where you wanna go if you're looking for comprehensive regulatory oversweeps.
Mhm.
But, I mean, hopefully we see some sort of positive outcome from that. I mean, the US is incredibly litigious, so if we see more lawsuits, we're bound to see some sort of something in the some sort of development that's positive in the area. But, yeah, I mean, I'm really grateful to honestly hear about this, and I think it's important for kids. Like, Fleur, would you want, like, your potential kids, like, on social media that young, you know?
No, I agree. I lost you for a minute. I'll get it out. Wait.
Anyway, I was just saying it like, that's so funny because we were kind of finishing up discussing how, like how crazy it is, you know, how our lives are so dominated by, like, phones and computers and
Mhm.
etcetera, and then I was kicked out. So
Exactly, then it just completely stops. But I
yeah,
think
and it uh-huh.
I wanna say this is the good thing about social media is that you can connect with each other even if you're across the sea.
Yeah, that is so true. I mean, there's so many positives, and I suppose there's negatives as well. I actually do think I keep a good balance of, like, trying to be in real life and trying to be
Mhm.
online as well. You know, I am not good with, like, texting at all, and, but really, it's genuinely because I have all these locks on my phone, you know,
Mhm.
and I'm not on it as much, like, my screen time is pretty low, and I just you know, I always have stuff going on, so but it's good because, like, then when I'm in person with people, I can kind of really give my undivided attention, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
totally.
I mean,
No,
it's all a balancing act. Go on.
no, true, but I think also, like, coming back to the news item, I think, like, the banning AI companionship, especially for people who are still developing minds, I think it's a good thing
Yeah.
because you can get addicted so quickly. We've seen it with gaming, we've seen it with gambling, and they're using all the same kind of tricks to keep you locked into the app.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's healthy, especially if in the years, like when you're a teenager, like you need to learn your social skills. Otherwise, later in life, you're just gonna have a bad
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, I mean, and we saw that with COVID too, because I mean, Gen Z was hit with COVID along their developmental years. And I mean, developmental is a very broad term. Technically, you're developing until you're dying, right? But
Oh yeah, no, definitely. But also, I'm 27. I feel 25 because I missed those
yeah.
2 years of development.
Yeah, exactly, exactly, and it's like, especially, like, if you're 1 to 20, like, if you're 1 to 30, like, all that is such an intensive growth like, you don't know who you are, you know, you're learning how to
Mhm.
live in the world, especially your 20s, because you're, like, outside and, you know, out of college, trying to develop a career, trying to build etcetera, but, yeah, so I think it is really important that kids are kind of forced outside to meet people. And I don't agree with children being on Instagram and social media. I don't think it's good. So, yeah.
No, exactly. We sound like those old people now. Children should not
Yeah,
be
we
on social
literally
media, but
yeah, we
it's true.
literally
Like we know
do.
from our own experience. Like we're just out of
Yeah,
that phase, and we know like how important it is to go to events. I think it's also like why the event industry is going to be booming as long as there's not going to be any epidemic.
yeah.
But
No,
I think,
definitely.
but I think this is also why it should. Yeah, people should just. I don't want to say go smell a flower, but just being outside, being outside, meeting people, getting those social skills because it's gonna help you so much. Also, like if you're in the whole like us, like in the career building phase, you're gonna need those social skills to climb the
Oh,
ladder.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm going to the beach today, so that's my big step against technology. Can't
Nice.
bring your phone into the water. So,
No, exactly. I would not recommend it
yeah.
unless you bring like one of those bags that is like ziplocked.
Yeah, yeah, those are
Then
next
you can
level.
bring your phone.
I used one of those in Hawaii, actually. I went paddleboarding in Hawaii, and I had my phone in one of those.
Nice.
Yeah, and I was, like, taking pictures, whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. No, good. But I think it's also good for us then for you to go to the beach. I am gonna go do a barbecue.
Love it.
But for us to wrap it up as well, so we talked about software is now a restricted munition. So
Mhm.
70 hours Meta's ban proves that national security concerns will instantly terminate international access, fast tracking the need for sovereign compute infrastructure. We're also talking about the commoditization escape patch in hardware. So Midjourney pivots proves that top tier AI labs are escaping the crowded software market by moving into physical industry where they can solve like high stake problems like human survival, but also that regulators are now targeting psychological impact. So the UK romance ban signals a new era of like proactive social regulation where states are willing to restrict technology based on its cultural and emotional impact rather than just data privacy.
Mhm.
So, for everyone, thank you so much for listening. Hope you had a lot listening to the AI news of this week.
Mhm.
Subscribe to our newsletter. You can do that on our website or on our LinkedIn page. Leave a review on any platform that you're listening to this on because we need more insights
Yes,
as well.
and definitely be sure to see Fleur at if you can, at the AI for Good. I'm sure also that it'll be recorded and uploaded, and that'll be on our social media, and, I mean, we'll be discussing it on the podcast too, so just stay tuned because she has a very, very busy summer, and yeah.
It's insane at this
Yeah, it's
point, but
like
it's
you're on
fine.
tour. It's like you're on tour.
I
Yeah,
know!
yeah, it's
That would be
awesome.
so awesome. Yeah, maybe we'll get high five by a lot of people. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will.
All right, anyone, thank you for listening and see you next week.
Bye.
Hey, bye bye.